The process of strategic management is generally thought to consist of 5 sequential and continuing steps. Step 1 is environmental analysis. Step 2, establishment of an organizational direction. Step 3, strategy formulation. Step 4, strategy implementation. And step 5, strategic control. Getting to the first step, environmental analysis. So the first step of the strategic management process is environmental analysis. In chapter 2, under systems thinking perspective, there was presented the idea that organizations are open management systems and they are continually interacting with their environments, with their external environments. So एक organization उसी सूरत successful हो सकती है अगर वो अपने environment के साथ match करे. Environmental analysis is the study of the organizational environment to pinpoint environmental factors that can significantly influence organizational operations. Managers usually environmental analysis इसलिए करते हैं कि उन्हें इस बात का अंदाजा हो सके कि एक organization के inside and outside क्या happenings हो रही हैं and so that they increase the probability that the organizational strategies they develop will appropriately reflect the organizational environment. Environmental analysis की activity को efficiently or effectively perform करने के लिए a manager must thoroughly understand how organizational environments are structured as the first step. For purposes of environmental analysis, the environment of an organization is generally divided into 3 distinct levels. There is the general environment, that is the most external category of environment, and that affects the operations of the organization indirectly. Then we have the operating environment, which is also called as the task environment, which again is part of the external environment of the organization, but it affects organizations' operations directly. That's why it's called as the operating environment. And last, we have internal environment, of course, which pertains to the internal processes of the organization. The general environment is the level of an organizational external environment that contains components having broad and long-term implications for managing the organization. The components normally considered part of the general environment are mentioned there, which are the economic component, technology component, legal component, political component, and social component, and international component. Firstly, the economic component. Economic component is that part of the general environment that simply indicates how resources are being distributed and used within the environment. This environmental analysis was touched upon in our third chapter, in which we had discussed about globalization and the factors in the international environment that affect the operations of a global firm. So the idea is still the same, just with a little difference. Coming back to the economic environment, important issues to be considered in an economic analysis of an environment are generally the wages that are paid to labor, inflation, the taxes paid by labor and businesses, the cost of materials, the prices at which produced goods and services are sold. तो जो इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज हो सकते हैं जो इस इन्वायरमेंट को इन्फ्लुएंस करते हैं जिसमें ये एक कंपनी ऑपरेट कर रही है and the ease or difficulty the organization experiences in attempting to reach its objectives would be part of the economic environment. For example, एक organization के लिए ये आसान होगा कि वो अपने products higher prices पे sell करे अगर जो उसके customers हैं potential वो high wages earn कर रहे हैं और कम taxes pay कर रहे हैं, because they would have more money at their disposal then. As compared to the customers who are earning relatively low wages and they have very fewer after-tax rupees to spend. So that's how the pricing and different strategies of the organization would be affected by the economic environment. Coming towards the technology component, This is that part of the general environment that includes new approaches to producing goods and services. These approaches can be new procedures as well as new equipment. The trend towards exploiting robots to improve productivity is an example of the technology component. Legal component. This component is that part of the general environment that contains passed legislation or laws, as we may say. This component comprises the rules that society's members must follow. Some examples जो legislation की हो सकती हैं, जो organizations के operations को affect करती हैं, are different acts and different policies by the state. For example, the Clean Air Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, Compensation and Liability Act, etc. टाइम के साथ साथ न्यू लॉज पास होते रहते हैं एंड ओल्ड जो लॉज होते हैं वो या तो अमेंड हो जाते हैं या समटाइम्स एलिमिनेट भी हो जाते हैं. सो organizations and businesses need to keep this into account. Political component. The political component is that part of the general environment which is related to government affairs, and examples include the type of government in existence, government's attitude towards various industries, lobbying efforts by interest groups, progress on the passage of laws, and political party platforms and candidates. इसमें political instability भी आ जाती है, and we all can easily understand कि किस तरह political situations और political unrest आपके organization के business को और profits को hurt कर सकता है. Getting to the social component. The social component is the part of the general environment that describes the characteristics of the society in which the organization exists. यानी उस let's just continue. Two important features of a society commonly studied during environmental analysis are demographics and social values. Demographics उस society की या उस organization के जो भी stakeholders हैं वो generally कौन से characteristics bear करते हैं, as in the matter of age, in the matter of education, race, qualification, income level. These are all the demographics. Knowing that only a small number of people have a certain type of educational background, for example, would tell an organization that it should compete more intensely to attract these people. So that's how the demographic component under the social component affects business operations. So उनको अपनी HR policies को ज़्यादा comprehensive बनाना पड़ता है, और they have to become more reputed in the market so that those individuals who are less in number and are more qualified than others would approach those organizations. The international component. The international component is the general environment segment that is composed of all the factors relating to the international implications of organizational operations. Although not all organizations must deal with international issues, but the number that have to do so is increasing dramatically and continually in the 21st century, as we talked about in the globalization chapter. Then the second layer of environment, the second type of environment is the operating environment. The level of an organization's external environment that contains components normally having relatively specific and immediate implications for managing the organization is this environment, which is called the industry environment or operating environment or even task environment. There is a 5 forces model which is best known for industry analysis, and it was developed by internationally acclaimed strategic management expert Michael E. Porter. And actually the lecture video for Porter's 5 forces model is attached on LMS for your reference, which has been outsourced from YouTube, so you need to refer to that. Then the third most layer, the internal environment. The level of an organization's environment that exists inside the organization and normally has immediate and specific implications for managing the organization, यानी कि उसका जो impact होता है organization के operations पे वो direct होता है. So that's the internal environment. In broad terms, the internal environment includes the various departments of the organization, marketing, finance, accounting, and other departments. From a more specific management viewpoint, it includes the 4 functions of management, that are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling within the organization. That would be all for this video.